I'm hoping you'll believe me when I say I look dewy because I just got out of the shower. I did. I also got a little sunburned yesterday, so I'm a little hot under the collar. Hi everybody, it's Kim in middle of the book march, and this is a big book haul. I did not buy all these books all at once. They've been collecting for May and June so far, and I've been buying a little at a time here and there. As usual, these are all bargain and or used books, and that's primarily what I buy because I can get more quantity that way. So let me show you what I got. I have a few stacks. I have some books that I never heard of, and I read the synopsis online. These are all book mail, by the way. And I read the synopsis online and I thought that sounds interesting and I like the cover. I'm going to buy those. So I have a few of those. I have a stack of paperbacks. I have a stack of hardcovers, mostly fiction, and then I have some nonfiction. So what am I going to share with you first? I'm going to share with you some books that were brand new to me. I don't know if I've ever heard of these, but they sounded good. The first one is The Nature of Small Birds by Susie Finkbeiner. And I just absolutely loved this cover. Look at this gorgeous bird picture. This is a novel, and this is about, very briefly, 1979, 3,000 children were airlifted out of Saigon, adopted into Western homes. This is after the Vietnam War. One of those children announces her One of those children announces her plans to go back to Saigon to try to research and maybe track down her family and try to find her birth mother. And she has a loving adopted family who's suddenly kind of thrown into chaos, but they want to try to be supportive and they want to do what they can do for their very well-loved daughter. So that sounded so good and sweet, but there's, obviously an emotional roller coaster for her adoptive family. Again, look at that bird picture. Really sweet. This next one is Angel and Hannah, a novel in verse by Ishley Yee Park. That's the cover. This is a very slim novel in verse. This is an interracial couple in 1990 New York City, and they are determined to prove their love at all costs. It's a reimagining of Romeo and Juliet. And it's a novel in verse, so it looks like this on the inside. So on and so on. I am not a huge poetry fan, but I love novels written in verse. I believe they're beautiful. I've read several. Jacqueline Woodson writes that way, and I've loved her books. So this one I was really happy to discover, and that looked really good. This one is called The Den by Abby Maxwell. Again, this is a book where the cover kind of like, ooh, what's that book about? And this is a hypnotic story of youth, sex, and power that tells of two young women who find themselves ostracized from the same small New England community for the same reasons, though they are separated by 150 years. Let's see. It's Henrietta and Jane and Elspeth and Claire. Now, this is kind of you put something in the setting of a small New England town with going back in history, which I haven't read very much of it, but I am assuming it is during Salem witch trials and so-called witch persecution. So yeah, I love books set in that time period, so that was a good one. Okay, so now I have a stack of nonfiction that I wanted to show you. I had to buy this one when I saw it. Why not? When Women Ruled the World, Six Queens of Egypt by Cara Cooney. And I had been watching this book on Book Outlet is where I found it, and it kept going out of stock, back in stock, out of stock, back in stock. And finally, I hit the button. Throughout human history, powerful women have been called many things: bitches, witches, regents, and seductresses. Female rulers revered and respected are a rare phenomenon, except that is in ancient Egypt, where they governed regularly, repeatedly, and with impunity. This is a really interesting cover, too. This sounded fascinating, and what I've decided to do in my personal bookish reading life is I really want to read much more feminist history, whether it's fiction or nonfiction. And I thought this would be a good addition to my feminist literature library. This is a tiny, thin little book. This is Wholly the Firm by Annie Dillard. And I'm a fan of Annie Dillard. In 1975, she took up residence on an island in Puget Sound in a wooden room furnished with one enormous window, one cat, one spider, and one person. For the next 2 years, she asked herself questions about time, reality, sacrifice, death, and the will of God. I am dying to read this, and because it is so small, it's barely 75 pages. It's Annie Dillard, reminded me of Thoreau's Walden. I would love to get that read very quickly. Oh, and this one. I love this author. I love this nonfiction author. This is Cy Montgomery, The Hummingbird's Gift. This is such a beautiful, sweet little book. Cy Montgomery is the author of The Soul of an Octopus, and How to Be a Good Creature, both of which I absolutely loved. She is an animal archivist, researcher, author, writer, and writes beautiful, beautiful books about animals. And this one is Hummingbirds, Wonder, Beauty, and Renewal on Wings. And I just flipped through this very quickly and found such gorgeous color pictures. Look at those. How gorgeous. Oh, it is so beautiful. And the book has gold foil on the front. So very pretty. This one is a graphic memoir, and this is Marbles by Ellen Forney, Mania, Depression, Michelangelo, and Me. This is another book I've been keeping my eye on for a while, and again, on Book Outlet, it came back into stock. I grabbed it, and, really looking forward to this one. I have mentioned before in some of my videos that about 5 years ago, so when I was 50, I was finally diagnosed with bipolar type 2. And so bipolar type 2 is a lesser extreme, more chronic bipolar illness. And my mother had bipolar type 1 during her lifetime. So I am very well medically cared for. I take medication daily for it. I have benefited greatly from that, along with, therapy support and that type of stuff. But so I'm always intrigued by books about bipolar people, especially artists, and what their experiences have been like. I'm fascinated with creative people and artistic people who have over history been diagnosed with a mental illness. Van Gogh is one of the most famous, but this is a black and white graphic memoir of her experiences with bipolar disorder and creativity. So that looked really good. When I found this book, I immediately thought of Heidi, and I'm going to read this, and maybe, Heidi, if you're watching, if you're interested in this book, let me know. I will read it soonest, then I'll pass it on to you, or I will direct you toward Book Outlet so you can get a copy for yourself. This is called Abundance, Nature in Recovery by Karen Lloyd. Look at this beautiful, beautiful photo, gorgeous picture. And this is a collection of literary essays. She explores abundance and loss in the natural world, relating compelling stories of restoration, renewal, and repair, describing how those working on the front lines of conservation are challenging the inevitability of biodiversity loss, as well as navigating her own explorations in the meaning of abundance in the Anthropocene. And I heard nature and literary essays, and I thought I have to grab myself a copy. And then the last nonfiction, I blame Heidi, and I blame Britta, and I think Doris may have also had this on her channel. The Language of Butterflies by Wendy Williams. This is probably the most beautiful book I've bought so far this year. Look at that shiny, shiny blue butterfly, filled with butterflies cover. And this is the back, and they're on the back too. It's so beautiful. It is such a beautiful dust jacket. And I don't know if there's any surprises. No surprises underneath. It's a reporting on these otherworldly insects and butterflies can I speak? Butterflies are beloved across the globe, adorning fields and forests, gardens and zoos. And it's a book about butterflies. Who would not love this? And I had to pick up this book. And again, Heidi, Britta, Doris, it's all your fault. Doris, if you don't have that, I'm sorry. I didn't want to blame you in that group, the group blame. Okay. Now, this next pile is all paperbacks. This is the Autobiography of Red, another novel in verse by Anne Carson. I think that this has been around for a while, and I've known of it for a long time. This was copyrighted in 1998. And this is, Anne Carson is a poet, and she reinvented a genre in Autobiography of Red, which is a work that is both a novel and a poem, an unconventional recreation of an ancient Greek myth and a wholly original coming-of-age story set in the present. Geryon, a young boy who is also a winged red monster, reveals the volcanic terrain of his fragile, tormented soul in an autobiography he begins at the age of 5. I am fascinated. So yes, a novel in verse. Again, it's this type of internal format if you're interested in this slim little book, which I am. This one is Margaret Lawrence, The Stone Angel. Oh, here she is. She was born in Manitoba, Canada in 1926. She is a well-known Canadian author, and she settled in Ontario in 1974. She died in Ontario in 1987. This is suffering the indignities of old age with uncompromising pride and resolve. 90-year-old Hagar Shipley decides to make a bold step toward freedom and independence. Faced with the threat of being placed in a nursing home, Hagar revisits her life, memory by memory, her forceful husband and their stormy marriage, the son she lost, the son she never loved, the traditional remote prairie town she grew up in. Give me a book with an elderly female protagonist. So, this is Her Land. This is a lost feminist utopian novel by Charlotte Perkins Gilman. Charlotte Perkins Gilman is the author of The Yellow Wallpaper, which is a very well-known feminist classic novella. On the eve of World War I, 3 American male explorers stumble onto an all-female society somewhere in the distant reaches of the earth. Unable to believe their eyes, they promptly set out to find some men, convinced that since this is a civilized country, there must be men. What? I don't know about that. But come on, a lost feminist novel by Charlotte Perkins Gilman. Yes, please. Now the next 3 I'm going to show you together. These are all collections of plays by Euripides, and these are the Oxford World Classics edition. This one is the Trojan Women and Other Plays, with this beautiful Oxford World Classics artwork on the cover. This is Medea and Other Plays, with a beautiful artwork, a little not suitable for work picture, and Bacchae and Other Plays. I just kept seeing everybody's Ancients-a-thon videos, and I think that Shelly Swearingen motivated me and to look into the ancients and their plays, and I thought, these look so good. And I am dying to read Medea, which I have never read. So, great. Some books that I absolutely love are the Virago Modern Classics in the green, and this is Dorothy Edwards' Winter Sonata in this green Virago Classics edition. I find these on World of Books, and all I do is I type in Virago Modern Classics into the search bar, and it brings up all kinds of Virago Modern Classic editions with all female authors. They only publish women writers. So this one is Mr. Arnold Nettle, a shy young telegraph clerk, arrives in a secluded English village as summer ends. Through the post office window, he sees a beautiful woman, Olivia, walk past, and her appearance seems to herald a new hope for his life. Then her confident, secure family invite him to their home to play his cello, and gently, inevitably, he finds himself falling in love. But with the slow approach of spring, we see Mr. Nettle's fragile hopes just as gently fade away. And I have several of these Virago modern classics, and I'm dying to get to them because I love the idea of reading maybe unexposed, unknown, underexposed classics written by women. These two I'm going to show you together as well. These are Atiya Hussein, Phoenix Fled, which is a collection of stories. I don't typically gravitate towards stories, but I liked that one. And same author, Atiya Hussein, Sunlight on a Broken Column. These are also both Virago modern classics. And Hussein lived from 1913 to 1998. She was born in Lucknow and educated in La Martiniere and Isabella Thoburn College. She blended an English liberal arts education with a traditional Muslim household. She was taught Persian, Urdu, and Arabic. And she was the first woman to graduate from among the feudal Talukdari families into which she was born. These are the two books that she is the author of. So, gorgeous covers. This one is Layla, an orphan daughter of a distinguished Muslim family, is brought up in her grandfather's household by her aunts who keep purdah. At 15, she moves to the home of her liberal but autocratic uncle in Lucknow. As the struggle for independence sharpens, Layla is surrounded by relatives and university friends caught up in politics, but she is unable to commit herself to any cause. Her own fight for independence is a struggle against the confines of tradition. In this collection of stories, Phoenix Fled, a marriage is arranged between a young servant girl and a middle-aged cook with an opium habit. An idealistic political worker faces disillusionment. A man returns from studying in England to a wife he scarcely knows. A bride has her first encounter with her husband's emancipated friends. Those are some of the examples of the stories in this collection. This one is a new favorite author of mine. This is The Flight of the Maidens by Jane Gardem in this Europa edition. There are so many editions of books that I love. The Europa collection is one of them, and I have purchased so many of Jane Gardem's books published by Europa. This is Yorkshire 1946, and the end of the war has changed the world again. Emboldened by this new dawning, three friends, Hetty Fallows, Una Vane, and Lisa Lott Klein, enthusiastically seize the opportunities on offer this summer before they are to start their university education. And I don't want to keep reading too much off of the blurb, but I love Gardem's writing, and some of these Europa covers are weird. The artwork, the photos are really weird, and a lot of times they are a little out of context. If you've read Elena Ferrante's The Neapolitan Quartet, you know what I'm talking about. That cover art is really weird. This one is Iris Murdoch, The Sea, and I did not have this in my possession, and I found this exceptionally well-kept used copy online. This is Charles Arrowby, over 60, a demigod of the theater, director, playwright, and actor. Retires from his glittering London world in order to abjure magic and become a hermit. It is to the sea that he turns. And Iris Murdoch was an Irish author, and I've been looking forward to reading that for a long time. This one is Gail Jones, Evas Man, and this is it's a Virago modern classic, but it's an interesting format for one of those books. Eva Medina, Canada, sits in a psychiatric ward silent. She has murdered her lover, and they want to know why. Her memories weave back and forth over encounters with the men in her life, the schoolboy who played doctors and nurses with a dirty popsicle stick, her mother's boyfriend, her cousin, her husband, a stranger on the bus. She's been propositioned and abused for as long as she can remember. And I'm looking forward to reading Gail Jones. So yeah. I bought a Barbara Pym, No Fond Return of Love. Barbara Pym is another new favorite of mine since joining BookTube. And I have a few other books in this format, this artwork. Dulcie Mainwaring is always helping others, but never looks out for herself, especially in the realm of love. Her friend Viola is besotted by the alluring Dr. Alwyn Forbes, so surely it isn't prying if Dulcie helps things along. Alwyn, however, is smitten with Dulcie's pretty young niece, and perhaps Dulcie herself, however ridiculous it might be, is falling just a little for Alwyn. Once life's little humiliations are played out, maybe love will be returned, and fondly after all. This book was published in, 1961, and Barbara Pym is just a BookTube favorite. Especially, I first learned about her from Shawn the Book Maniac, but I also read Excellent Women with Ange from Ange's Book Chatter. We absolutely loved that book, and Barbara Pym is wonderful. Just a few more. Oh, this is a long video. I'm going to try to get through these quickly. Liberty by Caitlin Greenidge. Look at this. Deckled edges, French flaps. And I love this format. The critically acclaimed and Whiting Award-winning author of We Love You, Charlie Freeman, returns with Liberty, an unforgettable story about one young black girl's attempt to find a place where she can be fully and only herself. This has been going around BookTube a while, last year and maybe the year before. This was published in 2021, so last year. This one is Call Baby by Morgan Jerkins, and Morgan Jerkins, this is a novel, but Jerkins wrote This Will Be My Undoing that I listened to on audio last year, and I really enjoyed that. She narrated it. She's got a great voice to narrate her story, and this one is an interesting premise. Layla desperately wants to become a mother, but each of her previous pregnancies has ended in heartbreak. To protect the child she's now carrying, she turns to the Mellencamps, an old and powerful Harlem family known for their caul, a precious layer of skin that is rumored to hold miraculous healing properties. So I really liked her essays, and I look forward to reading her fiction. This is Chouette by Claire Oshetsky. This is another one that's been all over BookTube, and this one is a strange one. This is about a woman that gives birth to a baby owl, and there's a lot of commentary in here about disability and ableism, acceptance, motherhood, and it's a weird one. I've heard it's a weird one, a short one, and I just couldn't stop myself. And I also love, what is it with the birds today? There's a bird theme. I love this cover. T.L. Hushu, The Library of the Dead. This is a first in a series, I believe. And this is When Ghosts Talk, She Will Listen. Ropa, I love that name. Ropa dropped out of school to become a ghost talker, and she now speaks to Edinburgh's dead, carrying messages to those they left behind. A girl's got to earn a living, and it seems harmless enough, until that is, the dead begin to whisper that someone's bewitching children, leaving them husks, empty of joy and life. It's got the word library in the cover, the Library of the Dead, and it's got that picture. So I'm like, I had seen this around. It looked really good. Looked like a fun read. Picked that one up. And the last one is a favorite to win the Women's Prize, which has not been announced yet. This is Sorrow and Bliss by Meg Mason. And I think I saw Britta's review of this, and there have been several others. Martha Friel just turned 40. Once she worked at Vogue and planned to write a novel, now she creates internet content. She used to live in a pied-à-terre in Paris. Now, I butcher French accents, I'm sorry. Now she lives in a gated community in Oxford, the only person she knows without a PhD, a baby, or both, in a house she hates but cannot bear to leave. But she must leave now that her husband Patrick, the kind of man who cooks, throws her birthday parties, loves her, and has only ever wanted her to be happy, has just moved out. Hence the title Sorrow and Bliss. So I'm really looking forward to this. If this wins the Women's Prize, I will have to read it immediately. So those are all the books that I collected in the last month and a half that I've purchased online. And let me know if you've read any of these and which one to read first, if I can get to any. I have so much on my plate, so many books on my TBR. June is full, so it'll have to start in July. Whew, let me know. Let me know what your thoughts are on any of these books, if you've read any of them, and I will see you in the next video. Bye, everybody.